trading as SPVNF, Spectra7 Microsystems Incorporated, operates as an analog semiconductor company in Canada and China. Take it away, Spectra7.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Spectra7 presentation. First of all, I want to remind you that our presentation today is provided under our cautionary statements, which you would see on slide number 2. With that, let me start by introducing Spectra7. We are a San Jose-based semiconductor company, very much focused on a particular high-growth segment of the semiconductor industry, which is high-performance analog components that go inside cabling. The cabling opportunity is one that today is underserved. It's high growth and high margin, as you will hear about as I go through the presentation. Again, we're headquartered in San Jose, but we are listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange Ventures, and also we trade on the OTCQB exchange. Our devices are embedded within copper cabling, thereby enabling those cables to perform a lot better than they would if they were so-called passive, meaning without electronics. Our devices are embedded in the connector at either end of the cable. We enjoy a very rich universe of blue chip cable customers, as well as end OEMs and operators. Some of the names are shown on this particular slide, but we have a very large footprint globally within both the cable community as well as the ultimate customer opportunity. So to define for you our addressed markets, going from left to right, Spectra7 started about 11 years ago in the consumer connectivity market, focused on the kinds of cables that you and I as users would associate with, for instance, HDMI cables, USB cables, so on and so forth. As that market started growing for us, we focused on the VR, virtual reality and augmented reality markets, where we provided a very unique class of speed and thin copper cable to connect. Head-mounted today is focused on what is arguably the largest and richest copper cable infrastructure opportunity, which is really the hyperscalers or data center infrastructure market. Today, that market is inflecting for us and driving very significant revenue growth in the immediate and in the medium term. Longer term, you would see a sampling of the end markets that we are pursuing. For example, in electric vehicles, we believe that there's a very strong demand for this kind of class of active copper cabling because of its inherent, not only high speed, but lightweight associated with the thin cabling opportunity. Also within the 5G infrastructure market, there's a tremendous opportunity for us. We already have one very large operator developing active copper cables using Spectra7 for 5G specifically. And finally, within the box, meaning within a switch, a router, a server, and so forth, another very important, potentially very lucrative opportunity for Spectra7. So why Spectra7? We think there's 3 critical reasons why you should think about Spectra7 for a significant investment. First and foremost, we provide a highly differentiated, unique, and heavily patented technology into what is arguably the fastest growing semiconductor market today, namely the hyperscaler data center infrastructure. We fill a very critical and very important connectivity gap in the market today with this unique high-speed and low-power solution. We provide tremendous value to the operators. Those would be names like Google's, Amazon's, Alibaba's, Tencent's, and so forth, in providing them a cabling solution that is both much lower cost than the alternative, namely an optical fiber, but also at the same time saving them tremendous operational costs because of the low power, low energy, and hence low electricity bills associated with this technology. We've been at it for about 5 years. We have a very significant swath of design wins, 92 as of the end of the June quarter of this year. And just to give you a sense for where we are today, a number of these design wins are on their way to production. So far, only 6 have hit production. So think about another 86 on their way to production, driving very strong growth over the course of the next couple of years. And you would see on the right-hand side, a 4-quarter snapshot of our revenue. This is 2021 specifically. You'd see that revenues have almost doubled every single quarter year to date. And in fact, we expect that In our third quarter that we just pre-announced, we will report $1.5 million of revenue, slightly more than doubling over Q2, and expect to again double in Q4 for roughly at the midpoint of our guidance, $3 million of revenue in the fourth quarter of 2021. Very importantly, we expect in total to deliver revenues of anywhere between 5.3 and 6.3 million for the year, up somewhere between 4x and 5x. Again, 4x and 5x compared to the year of 2020. And this quarter, the fourth quarter of 2021, we expect to achieve EBITDA profitability. So we're at a very, very important pivot point in the history of the company with a backlog, confirmed orders on the books today at the start of our fourth quarter of $7.2 million. Record strong order backlog for Spectra7, and also record revenue growth at this time, roughly again doubling every quarter sequentially and year on year between 4x and 5x. Great place to be, great inflection point for Spectra7, looking at the tremendous 2022 ahead of us. So let me tell you more about the critical technology or the enabling technology that's behind this active copper cable opportunity that we are exploiting. Within the data center, data rates continue to increase. So speeds and feeds continue to grow up. Historically, the industry has been at 100 gig speed node and is moving somewhere between 200 and 400 gig in the short term, and eventually 800 gigabit per second for interconnect. As these speeds and feeds increase within the data center, the need for this class of active copper cabling becomes ever higher, and in fact becomes pretty compelling once you get to 800 gig. We see optics continue to grow. That's the only alternative to active copper cables when speeds go up beyond 400 gig. And we see passive copper, meaning copper that is basically unconditioned and, if you will, unimproved by our technology, shrinking in its role within interconnects within the data center quite dramatically. That is already starting and is expected to accelerate along with the adoption of active copper cabling over the course of the next few years. So really, active copper cabling is by far the highest growth category within the data center. Fundamentally, the reason for that is that compared to the other two alternatives, namely passive copper on the left of this particular slide and optical fiber on the right, we bring a very unique solution specifically for short reach, up to 7, maybe even in some cases 10 meters of length. Certainly, optical fiber will continue to grow and will continue to be pretty much the only solution you have for very long cables, meaning 10, 20, 100 meters, even up to kilometers in length. Tremendous medium, it's very high fidelity. You pay for it. The cost of the optical fiber is high. The optoelectronics is also expensive and consumes a lot of energy. But compared to either passive copper, which is limited to at most a couple of meters at high speed, or optical, which is, as I said, high cost and high power, active copper cabling is a tremendous and really unique solution for connectivity within the rack of a data center and between one rack to the next most adjacent rack. We can support up to 7 meters, as I mentioned, in some cases even 10 meters, with much lower cost than optical, far lower power consumption, and much higher quality than clearly copper cabling. Our cables are thin, they're light, they're flexible, they're mechanically much more convenient to route and condition within a data center. So at Spectra7, our focus is on the hyperscaler data center providers. These are the big names. In China, there would be names you may recognize like Alibaba, like Tencent, Baidu, and others. In the US, it's household names like Amazon, like Google, like obviously Facebook, many others in this data center infrastructure market. This is a very sweet place to be. It's a large market that continues to grow rapidly. The opportunity for us is significant. It's here and now, and it continues to inflect. To give you a sense for the value proposition that Spectra7 brings to data center operators, this is a specific case study from a data center operator that we work closely with. They save on both capital expenditure as well as ongoing operational expenditures. On the CapEx side, as compared to optical, which is, as I mentioned, is pretty much the only alternative to active copper cables, we save them about $100 per cable, resulting in roughly $18 million in CapEx cost for each of the data center build-outs. But equally compelling, if not more so, is the operation expenditure savings. These guys save on the electric bill enormously. because we save them roughly 22 watts of power per cable, say versus optical. Our high-speed cables consume roughly a couple of watts as compared to roughly 24 watts in the case of optical or fiber optic cables. So you save both in terms of recurring or operational costs as well as capital expenditure. In the case of electrical bills, up to $20 million a year of savings. So it's not like an operator has to spend more to save more in the future. They save upfront in capital and they save in the ongoing operational expenses. We've been at this, as I mentioned, a few years now. We introduced the technology in 2017 and started capturing design wins in a big way in 2018, all the way through now and continuing. As of the last reported quarter, June of this year, we scored 92 design wins with a variety of data center operators and cable manufacturers worldwide. Roughly a little over a third of those are in China and just under 2/3 are in North America. Our key cable customers include all the big names, people like Foxconn, like Molex, like Luxshare, Leone, many others. We have in total 22, again, that's 22 direct customer assembler partners today, feeding essentially all the large hyperscalers worldwide. Good place to be. Again, so far, 6 of these 92 have hit production, and just those 6 alone are driving record order backlog profitability this current quarter and a very rich outlook for 2022. If I could just go to the next slide, the opportunity is quite large. Although optical will continue to grow, and we think at a pretty good clip, about 15% a year or so, the active copper cable market opportunity itself is explosive as compared to optical. We expect roughly a 70%, that's 70% compounded annual growth rate over the course of the next 4 or 5 years, with this market size eclipsing about $400 million of opportunity by the time we get to 2025. So it's not only a very rich and high growth market, by the way, it's also one that offers superior gross margins to the traditional consumer segments that Spectra7 has addressed in the past. So a couple of recent highlights from the financial front. Our stock closed at the end of the third quarter at $1.25 Canadian, post our 50-to-1 reverse split. Market cap sits at this point a little bit better than $26 million Canadian, roughly $30 million Canadian. Last trailing 12 months revenue reported as of the end of June was about 1.9 million. Obviously, that's historical. Again, for this calendar year, we expect to do somewhere around the 6 million, give or take. And gross margins, trailing 12 months gross margins, about 55%. Insiders have a strong position in this company. Myself, the rest of my board, and insiders collectively hold about 17.2% of our outstanding shares. We are long-term believers in this company, have invested ourselves in many private placements over the years, and have a strong vote in the future of the company. We do have a convertible note on the books. The balance as of the end of June is 8.2 million Canadian, and we have about 21.1 million shares outstanding. So just to give you a sense for our long-term operating model, we expect our revenue growth to continue to be very strong, give or take 60% on a 4-year compounded annual growth rate. The market is very large, as I showed you, inflecting from, call it $10–15 million in the near term to over $400 million. Again, over $400 million over the course of the next 4 or 5 years. So even minimal market penetration will drive tremendous top-line growth. Today, we enjoy a really superior position. I would say literally every single SKU, every single active copper cable in the market today uses Spectra7, we expect for the foreseeable future. But even with some market share erosion, we'd expect very strong compounded annual growth rate. Our margins are running, as we last reported, 58% for our third quarter of 2021. We in fact expect that those gross margins will themselves increase as the mix of data center revenues grow, and to ultimately get between 60 and 65% gross margins and drive EBITDA margins on the order of 25 to 30%. A very rich target operating model, one that we are starting to grow into, even as we speak, with profitability this current fourth quarter. So just to recap for you, Spectra7 is in a very unique place today being the pioneer, the innovator, early adopter, and market winner in the segment of active copper cabling specifically. In aggregate, just the data center opportunity itself represents over $400 million of revenue 4 years out from now. Obviously, the other segments that we serve, be it consumer or longer-term automotive, 5G, and others, will add to that. We're highly differentiated. Our technology is protected by 55 issued patents. We have a very strong position today in all the markets that we serve, and particularly the bullseye of data center interconnect, driving near-term revenue growth and long-term EBITDA margin expansion as well. We are the leader in the consumer space, be it HDMI, AR, VR, and other active copper cable tethered consumer applications. As mentioned, we have a unique position, well protected by 55 strong issued patents today, and we expect long-term that our capital-light business model will enable significant 60% plus gross margins and 25% plus EBITDA margins. With that, I thank you for your time and look forward to talking to you. Have a good day.